For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the Insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by author and researcher Ian Trottier. How you doing this morning, Ian?
Mike, it's great to be on with you. I'm doing fantastic. Got a little recovery going, but it's one day at a time. We're coming along just fine.
Yes. Last time you and I spoke, you were a guest with Terry Newsom and I on Behind Enemy Lines, and then there was an injury that took place. I guess we said a month ago was the surgery, so a little over a month ago.
Yeah, life can change very rapidly and very quickly, and the interesting comparison is it was right at the time where Minneapolis was squawking and crying about ICE. Arresting illegals, and unfortunately that one guy was shot and lost his life. And a week prior, the woman had tried to ran her car over the ICE agent, looked like, and she lost her life. But I happened to slip on ice, not an ICE agent.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, I mean, life comes at you fast sometimes. But yeah, your book, High Stakes Treason, you've got a re-release of this coming up, an update. But this is a book that, even if it's the original version, I think more people need to read, more people need to understand. If you could kind of give us a quick background on what caused you to write the book, and essentially give us the broad overview, then I really want to dig into the details with you on this.
Yeah, so what caused me to write the book was my quest and my efforts, if you will, patriotically, since 2016, when I started the podcast, Discussions of Truth in Miami on Wynwood Radio. My quest to expose the deep state is what caused me to write this book and expose the alleged crimes of John Brennan. Now, a critical piece of information that readers must understand is that I was presented with research from a former FBI agent that spent 10 years in the DC field office, and he handed me a binder at CPAC in 2024. He says, "Look, I've been researching John Brennan now for over a decade. I've gotten a death threat. My wife, my family thinks I'm nuts." And he'd lost his job at a private contractor called Surveillance back in 2011 when he tried to submit a tip to his former employer, the FBI, about criminality of John Brennan. The FBI did nothing about it, and the contractor, or the company he was working for, fired him. So I told him when I received the contents, I says, I will do my best, my absolute best, to get this message out and widely publicized. And that's what turned into a book. I created a manuscript of it. I went through it, vetted it, found all points, the appendix, 110 pages in the appendix to cross out, and all the research is accurate. And so I was able to get a publisher. Mike initially, Skyhorse, Tony Lyons was talking to me about publishing it, and then Posto Press handed me a contract. So it's published under their imprint, Bombardier Books, as of July 22nd, 2025. And that same day, Mike, Steve Bannon. Now, Now, I'm not getting between Bannon and Stone. Roger Stone's written the forward to it. That's their issue. But it does look like Bannon is caught in some crosshairs. He has
Yes.
not contributed anything in the book, but he was the first to have me on War Room with Natalie Winters, where he called the book the most exquisitely timed release in the history of publishing, because that same day, Donald Trump hosted the president of the Philippines in the Oval Office and called Barack Obama out for treason.
Yep.
And I've been on Stone Zone. I've been on a number of different interviews since July. But that's what caused me to write the book, Mike, is exposing the deep state. Because when it comes down to it, we cannot rely on Donald Trump, even though he's doing his best. It's ultimately it's us.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the big problem. I'm sure my audience is sick of hearing me say this by now, but that's my big disappointment right now is zero arrests. We keep having it teased out that Brennan specifically is under investigation, that a grand jury in Florida is looking into him. I've been told by some pretty reliable sources that there's probably at least 2 grand juries impaneled for Brennan for separate issues. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but it seems to have been a very long grand jury investigation, considering we first heard about this a little over 3 months ago, and that was after teasing out that there was an indictment coming for him in July. So, but I guess to go back to the book, what do you know what sparked this investigation to begin with? That this former FBI agent, now at a private firm, what put him on this path to begin with?
Yeah, so basically, he was incorporating the NTCT information that he knew about the National Counterterrorism Center, and in 2011 is when Anders Breivik was compiling his information to attack his targets in Oslo. And somehow Donovan, who's the intel source on this, was finding information regarding what Brennan should have known to help the NATO ally in preventing the attack. And that's what got him digging. Now, it wasn't until 2017, Mike, that he started compiling the white collar crimes associated to John Brennan. Initially, it was once Edward Snowden had blown the whistle on the NSA, then Donovan was able to aggregate the information and say, wait a second, John Brennan would have known this information because Anders Breivik was researching. He was entering his own private credit card information on Google searches, right? So Google, this is what he was using to create and write his manifesto and prepare the attacks, where some 66, I believe, in Norway, some 66 people lost their lives. He was attacking government, but that is what set Donovan down this road to expose this information. And in 2019, he released a 25-page synopsis of primarily the contents of what I've turned into a book, alerting American media, where crickets. I mean, the FBI wasn't listening to him, and nobody, not even independent sources, Mike, began listening to him. But that tone is changing slightly now with the publication, thanks to Posto Press. But we are finding, and Donovan keeps a fairly low profile. He's not active on social media. There's not much information on the internet. He does that on purpose. There's a lot at risk for him, of course, because he spent over a decade in the FBI. He's got to be very careful the roads that he travels in regards to that former employment and what he says, how he says it. But I'm different, right? Because I'm an independent source. I'm a free speaker. I'm a member of I'm just an average citizen doing my research. So I can basically run any way I want with it.
Yeah. So I guess so essentially, one of these things that was uncovered was that he withheld information from an ally, and then this essentially allowed this terror attack to occur. And then the companies that Brennan was invested in then sought contracts over there, and then the value of those greatly increased, I think over tenfold. And essentially, Brennan withheld information to line his pocket, allowed people to die, or that's what the picture it seems to paint. Do I have that correct?
No, you've got that exactly right. And this starts back in 1976.
Yeah.
communist sympathizer. He voted for the communist candidate. This is John
Yep.
Brennan, voted for the communist candidate for president 4 different times, and that's under lie detector test before he accepted the directorship of the CIA. That communist sympathy, I believe, Mike, is what triggered the deep state and the strings that are controlling the CIA, to basically use him as what's called a penetration agent to basically change the culture. Now, Michael Schroer is the former chief of Alex Station in Saudi Arabia. He agrees with this. As a matter of fact, he
Hmm.
spent 22 years in the CIA, and I proposed to him this concept, which is what I believe is that John Brennan again was chosen to change the culture in the CIA, create these communist sympathies within the what is referred to as the company or the order. Those are two different words and phrases that are used to describe the CIA from within. And I was just listening to an interview in regards to the JFK assassination and those mafiosos, those people that were contracted to take the hit out on JFK. That's how they identified the CIA was with the company. They were working with the company. So John Brennan, right now, and according to Patrick Byrne, Mike, John Ratcliffe, the current director, he is a quote performing flea, and that John Brennan owns. That's ONS. He owns the top 2 levels. Still owns the top 2 levels of the CIA. According to Patrick Byrne, that is the power that John Brennan retains over the CIA. So I think structurally it comes down to, and it's not a far off concept to understand, but I think it comes down to ownership, as in stock or company ownership or shares or banking. That's basically, I think, what it comes down to is regards to how that CIA is structured and who has control over it. I don't know the
Yes.
details. Mike said it probably links back to the city of London and certainly British intelligence. But we're looking at a long, systematic approach to how John Brennan has invaded, if you will, the country through the CIA. And I'm using that term because the title of the book is High Stakes Treason. That would be an invasion. It
Yeah.
would be abiding an enemy during the time of war. That's the war on terror. He enriched himself to the tune of just shy of $5 million by holding stocks illegally, Mike. He held
Yeah.
stocks illegally in this government contractor, the TAC, the Analysis Corporation. And something else that's interesting is this. There's a three-way between Zbigniew Brzezinski and a Barack Obama. So if we're looking back in the 80s, I believe it was, when Barack Obama supposedly, remember these transcripts are all sealed, supposedly he
Hmm.
was a student at Occidental College, and then he goes to Columbia University. Well, something interesting happened within over a year, where he is not stateside. That's Barack Obama. He goes to Pakistan.
Yes.
And what is he doing in Pakistan? During that time in Pakistan is when, fast forward to 2008, when he's a candidate for president, John Brennan goes back using the Analysis Corporation and scrubs vital passport information. What did he scrub? He used the Analysis Corporation to scrub passport information of Barack Obama. What did he use to scrub? And Jake Tapper, and I mentioned this to Riley Lewis on OAN last week, Mike. What was the information that he scrubbed? Because the two unwitting analysts that he
Hmm.
used, that would be Brennan using the analyst at the TAC and the Analysis Corporation, those two men were found dead, ended up dead. And so what is Barack Obama hiding? What is John Brennan hiding? And the other thing
Well,
is this: is
yeah.
that it's likely that John Brennan, Mike, it's likely that John Brennan was Obama's handler if Obama was a CIA asset, which I believe he was.
Yeah.
And
It
it,
certainly seems to be. And I know his grandparents were. They were affiliated with the CIA, possibly his mother as well. So I wonder if they were scrubbing that he was over there on a foreign passport while he was in Pakistan, or if it's just whatever else is connected around that.
yeah, that's I think that is a great assumption. And I mean, the fact that this man, we don't even have a legitimate. It doesn't sound like we have a legitimate birth certificate from this guy.
No.
Is one of the main concerns. But that's John Brennan, and that's the focal point of. I believe, again, remember the deep state has invaded this country. Their objective, in my opinion, is to make it a communist society, a socialist society.
Yes.
You bring it down to its knees. It's not a free and independent constitutional republic as it once was, and that is being tarnished with each day. With
Yeah.
Soros fighting these social upheaval groups, and John Brennan is caught red-handed. That is a critical thing here. And Mike, I spent a week and a half in Capitol Hill walking the halls of both the House and the Senate, distributing over 100 copies of this book. That would be this book right here. There's 100
Mm-hmm.
copies of this book in D.C. on the Hill. I met with a few different legislative directors, and the point here was that people understand politically and non-politically. They need to understand the crimes committed here. John Brennan has left a paper trail. It's all in the over 400 pages of this book. It gives readers an understanding and a bird's eye view of how John Brennan was able to get away with these crimes. It's highly sophisticated, and people must understand that John Brennan is and was one of the most intelligent minds of espionage on the planet. So this is a man that is very intelligent, but unfortunately, he has left a paper trail. And I'm asking Congress to investigate him. We've got the subpoenas in South Florida in that court, that grand jury under Judge Cannon. Jason Quinones is spearheading that. Mike Davis, Article 3 Project, who I've talked to very preliminarily. I'm trying to get him involved in the contents of the book. So far, I haven't been able to do that. But the subpoena is one thing. The subpoena is for perjury to Congress regarding the Russian collusion hoax. That's pretty easy for him to get around or get a slap on the wrist. What you can't get around are documentation of a criminal scheme that I call and identify as a CT intel monopoly. That is a counterterrorism intelligence monopoly that John Brennan created for himself and for the deep state to manipulate and sequester, which means hides critical intel from the American people on 3 different terror events. The first event was the foiled airplane bombing of Abdul Muttalib that boarded the plane in Amsterdam and was headed for Detroit. The bomb never went off. The second is our NATO ally. And the third, of course, is the Boston Marathon bombing, where it was hidden critical information regarding the Zarneo brothers and the FBI being unable to investigate these things. This is very detrimental to national security, and he needs to be put up on these investigations immediately.
Well, a few things. I mean, I honestly, I have no doubt he still has his finger in the pie, so to speak, and is controlling things that are happening at the CIA. And we need to get this guy off the street as soon as possible and then start really digging into this whole deep state operation that's been operating a shadow government behind our backs for years now. Because I have no doubt that you're right. This is a foreign infiltration, or a communist infiltration at the very least. We have all the ties there. Now, when you were talking to members of Congress, did there seem to be any real willingness to put a real effort forward to go after Brennan or the rest of these corrupt deep state actors that have been, infiltrated our government?
Yeah, I hate to mention names, but I'm going to do it because they've been inactive. But initially, I got the attention of the legislative director in Thomas Massey's office. I sat down with him with my intel source. We had an hour conversation right at Massey's desk, and I was told that Massey would be notified and that there would be an effort moving forward to bring this to broader Congress. In addition to that, I don't know what the official title is, but there's a research group there in Congress that is funded, and I went to the head of that research group. And again, those 2 people told me that they would continue investigation. There was an initial kind of energy that was going for a few weeks after, but it's completely died out. I've tried to foster it. I went in and sat down with the legislative director of Marsha Blackburn's office. Once we got into the white collar crimes, they ended the meeting. It was conceptually, these people are probably in their mid-20s. Conceptually, I think it's still very difficult for even people of that generation. I happen to be in my 40s, but I think it's very difficult for people that haven't really looked into the deep state to conceptualize this type of thing could happen at the upper echelons of our government. They abruptly ended the meeting, Mike. We got into the white collar crimes, and it was up. We got to go. So Marsha Blackburn, I didn't speak with Marsha Blackburn. I haven't spoken to Thomas Massey. Again, these are just staff members. But the other one was Harriet Hagman's office, and Harriet Hagman's office was interested primarily initially, but that's died off. Interesting thing happened as we left Hagman's office. I believe it's there in the Longworth building. I'm not exactly sure what, but we walk out of the office, we take a left, and I say we, me and my intel source, and Nancy Pelosi comes walking past us. If you saw the clip from the reporter or Lindell TV where Nancy Pelosi's furious, she's asked a question about J6, she turns around, she's like, "Shut up!" Da 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 da. It went viral for a little while. That happened.
Cara Castronova.
Okay. Yeah. John and I had walked out of the Hagman's office. Pelosi had walked past us with about 3 of her bodyguards. 10 minutes later, she walked over. I had left a copy of this book in her office. Yeah, I don't believe in coincidences. It is what it is. But but that's 10 minutes after Pelosi had walked past us. She was furious and had that encounter with the Lindell TV reporter.
That's
But
funny.
to answer your question, I've been unsuccessful in getting anybody in Congress to look into this. To my understanding, again, there's 100 copies of
Yeah.
this. Maybe somebody's looking into it, but it's been very it's. I was there. I made the initial push, and I'm going to continue pushing. But right now, there's nobody in Congress that's looking at this.
Yeah, you'd think, there'd be some effort to want to hold these deep state actors accountable, but I just don't see it right now. I mean, we keep hearing, we haven't seen any arrests from the DOJ, but I also don't understand this like adverse reaction to the white collar crimes. I mean, yeah, those aren't as exciting, but if you can get somebody on one of those dead to rights, at least you've got your hooks into them. Now they're going to be on the defense, and especially again, if you've got something that's a clear cut case, they're going to want to make a deal, and then maybe you can get action on something a little more sensational. That'll make the headlines, that will point to this activity. I mean, this is the thing too, I've mentioned this on the show several times now with these Epstein files. They've come out. There's been a number of these internet attorneys, many of them are former prosecutors, have pointed out like these files alone contain that if you just unredacted the names, there are clear examples of numerous financial crimes, from insider trading to revealing secrets and a number of other things. And that would at least be somewhere to start. And then maybe we can get pressure on some of the bigger items. And I would think you could take the same route here with Brennan. I mean, obviously, this guy's a wackaloon. We just had this morning, we've got the left, Obama's former, hang on, let me pull up what her name was. Susan Rice is out there basically saying they're going to make a list, check it twice. They're coming for all the Republicans and everyone else that has gone after Democrats as soon as they have power again. They better be ready for subpoenas. I mean, they're certainly willing to do this to us, but on our side, there seems to be zero effort to hold them accountable for literal crimes that were committed over the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, some of the things that are developing right now. Let me just mention this: is Mendel House in the UK, and then this recent arrest of former Prince Andrew. He's got all his titles stripped from him. But back in 2016, the reason I started digging into this is because of a guy named Anthony Sutton. And initially, what caught my eye was the Zika virus. But let me concentrate on Anthony Sutton. Anthony Sutton was a Stanford Hoover Fellow, and he wrote a book that caught my interest. And by the way, he was English. He was born in England, but working at Stanford. The book is called "The Federal Reserve Conspiracy." Now, some of the things he was talking about in regards to the Bush family, Prescott Bush, being part of a group funding the Nazi regime during World War II, is what got him reprimanded at Stanford, and he ended up leaving Stanford because they threatened to fire him if he wouldn't stop talking about it. So he walked away. The Federal Reserve Conspiracy is a book that lays out the British connection to even going back to George Washington and the financing of the American Revolution for the City of London. Something critical to pinpoint here is that the City of London is a sovereign state. It finances the monarchy, so it's not technically it's not part of the United Kingdom. But some of these things are starting to surface, and people like David Icke have spoken about this for a couple of decades. What the British are facing a very similar problem to what we are facing. And I explained this probably 4 years ago to an airline pilot named Josh Yoder. And he says, wait a second. So he says, in 1776, we declared our independence, but we after that war, we never actually won our financial independence. We won our physical independence, but not our financial independence. And I said, that's exactly right. And 45 presidents at the time, there were 45. I said, and today 47. I says, only one president in almost 250 years of history, only one president has left office without a federal deficit, and that was Andrew Jackson. No one else has left office without a federal deficit, and we can't pay it off. It's at 38 trillion right now. So some of these ties that people historically, decades old, and you could talk about G. Edgar Griffin as well, but some of these Elihu Root Ezra Pound rather. Some of these people that have been squawking the box now for decades, these things might be coming to root, because some of the cracks in the UK might be through Epstein might be surfacing. But also, Mike, I sent a copy to this book to Pam Bondi. I have her phone number. I met her at an event in Florida. She won't answer my calls. Doug Burgum's another one. I met Doug Burgum. I've got his number. He won't answer my calls. And it's like some of these people that I would engage with prior to them being appointed in the Trump administration, and I get they're very busy. That's one thing, but they're not doing anything, Mike. It's
No.
it's very disheartening.
Well, yeah, I mean, your book essentially puts John Brennan on a silver platter, and it would just require minimal research. And again, if we're just talking financial crimes, we haven't gotten to the really sick stuff with Brennan yet. Well, we've kind of skirted the edges on that, but you would think again that people would want the criminals arrested to get this scum out of DC, but there is zero will to do that, and I really can't figure out why, especially when, again, this is what the base wants, this is what the people of America want. We keep hearing about, nobody's above the law, but there seems to be a group of people at the top that are really pulling the strings that are. And yes, you mentioned the financial crimes, the Federal Reserve. I was fortunate enough to interview Theodore Griffin a few months ago, and the guy's 93 and still completely with it. But yeah, this is a control mechanism that's been a rope that's been around our neck since America's inception, essentially. And yeah, as you mentioned, right now we are controlled by our debt. This is one of the things they keep talking about related to China and how they could really leverage, or even in various countries in Europe, that they've bought up treasury bonds and they can hold those over our heads. We do something they don't like, they can just flood the market with it, crash the dollar, and essentially bankrupt most Americans just with financial pressure. And these are the kind of situations that they are intentionally putting us in, so external forces have control over the American people. Now, with Brennan, I guess we should probably get into this too, and that he authorized, he is the person that signed off on the passports, or the visas for the majority of the 9/11 hijackers. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this comes from testimony from J. Michael Springham. And again, viewers need to understand that the majority of the research that I present to the American public through high stakes treason is not my own. It is research that was given to me. I give it full credit in my introduction, where I identify this person and the person, and I was able to. And keep in mind, Mike, when I initially met John Donovan, he very much did not want his name attached to this. He basically just wanted me to take it and run with it and call it my own. And I says, wait a second, part of it is my own, but the majority of this is research that you've given to me. I was able to develop a rapport with this individual. Again, the FBI could come after him. He was unable to publish this information in any regard. They would confiscate it. They would jail him. But this is a stalwart member of the FBI.
Yeah.
And I show that certificate, that award that he was given in the introduction. So, people can attack me, but you need to be attacking the primary source here. And that is basically an FBI agent, a man that's patriotically a hero in my view, trying to educate the people that are paying him to do his detective work.
Sure.
But that is what's critical to understand here in regards to the white collar crimes. As you say, they're not as sexy as, if you will, and I hate to use that term, but it's an eye catcher.
It's the truth.
They're not as sexy as, hey, the real treasonous, the real dirty crimes, which are manipulating key intel. And let me read this because this is critical for when I say he created a monopoly over the intelligence of the American people. This is a quote from John Brennan himself, and he says the idea behind the TTIC. Now, the Terrorist Threat Interrogation Center was a creation post 9/11 that Bush created. Bush allowed Brennan to create from from executive order, and the TTIC spawned the creation of what was the NCTC, which is the National Counterterrorism Center. So the precursor is the TTIC, and this is what Brennan said verbatim. This gives readers an idea of the power that this man held for national intelligence. The idea behind the TTIC was that we needed to have some place in the government where all counterterrorism information would reside. Eventually, information from all 26 classified and unclassified networks flowed into the TTIC. The good news and the bad news, Brennan says, is that it had more access to more information than anywhere in the government. And this is the information that flowed right into the hands of John Brennan. So what he did is he used what are called code word compartments. And this is where Tulsi Gabbard needs to jump on the ball immediately.
Yes.
It has the power to go in and reveal the information in these code word compartments, which is what Brennan set up to sequester and hide all intel coming into these various terror activities using the Analysis Corporation, which monitored and created a database and monitored the movement globally on these suspected terrorists. He was able to compartmentalize the information, and only he and the person that he allowed to create the compartment had access to it. And that is how he was able to permit these crimes to happen, which are the terror activities. And he did this so that his illegally held stock under the Obama administration, and this is through what's called an ethics waiver granted by Norm Eisen and Rachel Molinaro, and she's written on it clearly. She writes that Brennan said that the 401k would be transferred to the IRA, which meant the stocks that he held would be liquidated. He didn't do that. There was a change in the name of the company. And as Congress funded the global war on terror, he knew that indispensable government contractor, the Analysis Corporation, he knew that those stocks would show up in value. And in 2009, at an estimated value of $50,000, just a couple years later, that value netted him just shy of $5 million. Now, this is where it's critical to our time right now, and Congress, and this is why they need to act on it, is because the Russian collusion hoax, the contents and high stakes treason, serves as motive, as his involvement to orchestrate the Russian collusion hoax, go in, bring for the Clintons who paid for it, bring Christopher Steele into the equation, write that Steele dossier using Stephen Halper, who's a CIA asset, Richard Dearlove, who is a British intelligence asset, and submit that to the Obama administration to try to smear that 2016 victory, which became a victory of Donald Trump. Now, a December 9th, 2016, a call and meeting in the Oval Office, which that should be recorded. It should be somewhere. Tulsi Gabbard again would be the one to expose this. I've submitted a FOIA request, haven't been granted that, but that should be on the skiffs somewhere that would expose the corroboration for that Russian collusion.
Unbelievable. Well, even just setting himself up so he could compartmentalize and control all this intel as it comes in. We really need somebody reviewing that too, because right now we don't know what we don't know. I imagine there's probably other crimes or torrid activity that they'll be able to link to just there by not providing somebody something that would have been essential. Again, controlling that flow is a very powerful tool, especially in these key roles that he's been in with other allies within the government. Now, you mentioned someone there, and I know that you provided a video here that I've got on J. Michael Springman. Should I run this first and then get into him?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, let's roll this real quick.
Ago, we had 15 of the 19 hijackers get visas from the CIA's consulate at Jeddah.
15 of the hijackers, 15 of the 9/11 hijackers got visas from the CIA's consulate in Jeddah. That's John Brennan, CIA Director John Brennan, back when he was the head of the CIA consulate in Saudi Arabia, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. 15 of the 19 hijackers got their visas from John Brennan. Let that wash over you. Redux. All that stuff about him getting people's passports is just so that he can get visas for terrorists. The same thing the CIA wanted all day long for the 9/11 hijackers, 15 of the 19 hijackers. It was John fucking Brennan and his CIA consulate who did that. One has to almost wonder if John Brennan with his Ukraine emoji in tow, one has to wonder if it's visas for terrorists. Redux.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, But there are connections here, a similar pattern with what Ryan Ruth, the potential Trump assassin or would-be assassin, what he was trying to do with getting visas and sending them over to Ukraine. But sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, so that is a clip that I created that shows back in August, Michael Benz doing a little dissecting of himself. I'm the one that's added my information to that, and I haven't connected to Mike Benz yet in regards. But what he's basically diagramming here is a 2004 testimony that it looks like J. Michael Springman, who's an acting attorney, he's a former State Department employee, gave to Cynthia McKinney, where he showed and he said that it was under the John Brennan jurisdiction of Saudi Arabia that 15 of the 19 9/11 hijacker visas were granted, again, under John Brennan's likely order, but certainly under his jurisdiction. When Springman went to Jeddah, he arrives to the consulate, which is it also been termed an embassy. It was not the embassy. That was in Riyadh. But he says, wait a second, what's the consulate? They're all primarily CIA workers here. And there were like 2 or 3 actual State Department employees, and one of them was him, and they were basically feeding him a demand, an order to grant these different visas. And he says, "Wait a second, these are possible terrorist suspects. I'm not giving them visas." So this is where he comes back stateside a number of years later, just a few years later, of course, and he gives this testimony. But that's where this is all caught up in. It's explosive because in Roger Stone's forward, he shows that 4 of the 9/11 hijacker visas were granted under John Brennan. But if we come back to Michael Springman's testimony, we can see that 15 of them.
Unbelievable.
And here's the other thing with the Ryan Ruth, and this is where the Ryan Ruth thing. So Ryan Ruth, of course, is in jail right now for an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. But that's where Benz makes this equation, because Ruth is likely a contractor or a former CIA employee that's granting these visas to Pakistanis and Iranians, these different people, to fight in the Ukrainian war. That's where the comparison was. And what he was doing is he was asking for passports in order to grant these visas. But that is Benz's view on why Ruth likely and very possibly was commissioned by John Brennan, the old John Brennan, to attack, make an assassination on Donald Trump. That's a whole other story that's nobody's talking about.
No. I mean, again, there seems to be some pretty clear established connections there. Now, we do need to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to be right back with even more. So, guys, stay tuned.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
All right, guys, thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the great programs here on Ex America News is by supporting our sponsors. And you can do that by going to lutfstudio.com and getting yourself a unique, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece of art from Annie Cyrus. And if you like one of the pieces on there, but it's not in the right color for your house, you can email her. She'll get back to you with an approximate delivery date and price for that custom item. Also, her book, Architecture Jihad. Right now, you can get the digital download of it on Amazon. It's just $10 as of right now, and physical copies will be out here in March. Pretty soon that'll be up for pre-orders. But go right now, get the PDF, the digital download, the Kindle version for just $10. And I hope her to get on the bestsellers list. She might be there by now, but I know she's pretty close already. But again, right now it's only $10. Price is going to go up when the physical copies come out. And she will also have autographed copies available on her website, Live Up to Freedom. All right, well, let's just jump right back into this because, again, I think a lot of people want answers on Brennan. Everybody knows this guy is a criminal, that he's been essentially orchestrating a silent coup from the depths of the swamp. But there, again, we keep bringing it up. There doesn't seem to be any real action on getting him, or does there? Because we do have this story that was just up today on Just the News. Sorry, 1 second, guys. My computer is misbehaving. There we go. We just had this up on Just the News, starting from this morning. Prosecutors zero in on CIA's Brennan with secret request for years-old evidence from U.S. Senate. So, like, they've investigated some of the corruption or illicit activity around Brennan for a while, but there's been no effort to actually prosecute, to actually indict him. As I mentioned earlier, we've heard about one or potentially multiple grand juries that are investigating him. I know he went from being a subject in a grand jury investigation to the target of a grand jury investigation in Florida. What do you think? Do you think that we'll actually see prosecutions, that we'll see an indictment here and bring him in? Because the other thing I've had a few people tell me is they think that if Brennan is indicted and is brought in, they've got him dead to rights, that he's somebody that would squeal, that would talk, and that's part of why there's so much interest around him.
Yeah, I mean, he's right now, from my understanding, again, he's only, if there's an indictment, it's only going to come from his false testimony to Congress. That's not going to yield a whole huge punishment. You've got to have some concrete evidence that this man links to the deep state. Now, in regards to showing his affiliation to Christopher Steele and the Steele dossier, the orchestration of the Russian collusion hoax, they're going to have to subpoena people that are part of what's called the Hamilton 68 dashboard and the association to that, because it was that which was which created the Russian bots, seemingly, that were giving disinformation for Trump and swaying Trump to win votes. That's something called the Hamilton 68 dashboard.
Yes.
This is high tech stuff. So the layers of high tech development in regards to, if we even go back to Cambridge Analytica and the Facebook scandal, those are all things that are going to tie into Brennan. I don't think, Mike, there's anywhere in DC that has anybody, any office, any body or department that has real meat to take down John Brennan. The only thing that exists is what Roger Stone has called of the most important and shocking books that he has read in his 50 years in politics. And remember, this is a man that's been working to bring light to the malfeasance surrounding Nixon. They were crushing Nixon. The deep state was crushing Nixon. They were successful in that. And prior to Nixon, Stone was involved in Goldwater. He's a guy that was very transparent. So for him to give those accolades in regards to high stakes treason is huge. He's tweeted about it, but there's nothing. This is why I call this book the most powerful book. This country's never seen anything like this. Typically, this type of information remains hidden in some vault in the CIA, in DC, in some department. It doesn't get out. It doesn't get leaked. But here's the problem: is that there's nothing classified in it. It was data mined by one of our FBI patriots, and I've delivered it to the masses. There's nothing like this ever in the history. Not even the book written on all the president's men in Watergate. Nothing has been delivered to the American people like this. And this is how the Trump administration can take down this deep state rat, if you will, John Brennan, and expose. And they're going to do, Mike, they're going to do everything in their power to prohibit this from happening, because if you successfully take down John Brennan, which if you ask me, we're going to do it. I'm going to do it. If once John Brennan is successfully taken down and exposed, and he's 70, we don't know how long it's to take, then you're talking about major dominoes falling that exposes crimes that will likely go back and shed the light on the JFK assassination, because let's not forget, JFK was not only assassinated for his dislike of the CIA, that he wanted to splinter in 1,000 pieces, but because, and primarily, if you ask me, because he was trying to re-involve the U.S. Treasury into controlling the Federal Reserve. He wanted to abolish the Federal Reserve, as far as I know. And
Yes.
he submitted those service certificates. So this all has to do about money and who's controlling our money. And John Brennan, you know, they're backpedaling, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Will anybody in the Trump administration actually do what they're supposed to do? Remains to be seen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not super hopeful there, or I feel like, a year in, we would have at least seen some arrests at some level of some of these deep state figures that everybody knows were caught with their hands in the cookie jar. But yeah, I mean, this is a monster that goes all the way back to, Eisenhower, even before him, the military industrial complex that he warned America about. And, assassinating John F. Kennedy, which again, I think is the first big deep state operation that we saw, removing somebody that they saw as a threat on multiple levels. I mean, pick your poison. Was it wanting to print real money? I mean, you realize that was the last time that we had actual money printed, were the silver certificates or silver dollars, silver paper dollars that were printed under Kennedy. That's the last time we had money that had actual value and wasn't just dead at the Federal Reserve. Not to mention, I mean, there's numerous other things that put him in their crosshairs for interfering with banking and bankrupting, basically looting America's treasury. Wanting a different path to the Soviet Union, possibly wanting to reveal information on aliens, which we'll get into here in a minute with Trump now, because this is all over the news as of yesterday. But Nixon, same thing. They forced him into pulling us off the gold standard. It wasn't something he wanted to do either. And we know these people have been controlling things from behind the scenes for probably over 80 years at this point. And this is an opportunity now to finally clean this out and get America out from under being a essentially captured nation, because that's really what we are right now. And we're seeing this more and more through the Epstein files, through other documents that have come out, through other revelations regarding the deep state, that there essentially is a shadow government behind the scenes. That maybe it's primarily located in intelligence agencies, but there are people then guiding them to make decisions that affect all of us, or put information out that to propagandize the American people to go a certain direction, information that's false. And something has to be done to stop this. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Sorry,
I completely concur with everything you've been saying. And the other thing is, which should be very alarming, is the buildup of force that we now have in the Middle East, the largest since the invasion of Iraq. This could, and the Russians are now exercising with the Iranians. You draw in the Chinese into this, and you see you draw the Chinese into this, and period. You have the Third World War, and it's brewing right now. So Trump's got to be very delicate on how he manages things. Something of interesting, and I really don't like to talk about it a lot, but something that's always caught my eye is this, Mike. And back in 2022. I was pushing the information that the Google whistleblower was bringing forth. His name is Zach Voorhees. He's written a book called The Google Leak. And he and I were very fortunate to get very close to Trump, in that we spoke to Tiffany Trump. And Tiffany and I would talk back and forth a little bit. And then as soon as I started getting into the Federal Reserve, things shut down. And I told her, I said, you've got to get that information to your father. So this is the great question I think most patriots have, regardless of being Democrat, Republican. This is what does Donald Trump? Obama, I think, is a CIA asset. Obama's just been working with the deep state from day one. But Trump is different, right? Trump is a guy that was independently wealthy and said, "Hey, there's something wrong in this nation. I'm going to try to make a difference." Well, he's made a difference. But there are certainly people, there are bad actors that are controlling him, as they were in Trump, the first administration. What does he know? What doesn't he know? And why is it? Why is it that Susie Wiles has basically got on him like she's got a leash around him? J.D. Vance being connected to Palantir, Yale University, that would be Skull and Bones.
Yes.
How deep is this entrenchment? It's critically deep. And it may be far deeper than I think any of us really truly understand. But this buildup in Iran is also something to be taken to be looking at, because Trump has got to be incredibly smart on how he does and how he maneuvers the Middle East right now.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly the way we're trending, is heading towards war in Iran, especially with this. We'll get to it here in a second. I'll pull it up. But this announcement that from Trump that they better make a decision in the next 10 days. And then we're also hearing talks just totally broke down, that we're not in agreement. So, I mean, that's definitely on the table. And like you said, Russia and China have ships over in the Strait of Hormuz right now, and they're conducting drills. We're set up for a perfect false flag right now if they really want one to draw us into World War III. And that's outside of any legitimate military actions that may take place to go after Iran and remove the mullahs and the regime there. Sorry, what was that?
Let me mention this, Mike. Let me mention this, and I want to give another perspective on how people should be approaching John Brennan. And again, look, he has left the paper trail. According to Patrick Byrne, I'll go back to Patrick Byrne. According to Patrick Byrne, who was a CIA asset, likely is still a CIA asset, whether he realizes it or not. In 2006, he was brought into the CIA under a guy named David S. Cohen. David S. Cohen was part of the Treasury Department that approved the sale of the Analysis Corporation when it was sold to the Hong Kong-based British UK firm. So it's now in possession of the UK firm. That's David S. Cohen. And then David S. Cohen later was interim director of the CIA. That's the guy that brought Patrick Byrne into the CIA. Patrick Byrne has recently stated in the last month that John Brennan created a data center in Belgrade with Huawei. That's a Chinese software company, HUAWEI. That's critical because that data center manipulated Dominion servers, which rigged that 2020 election and put Biden in office.
Yes.
Again, John Brennan.
Yes. Yeah. And we're hearing essentially the only reason that 2024 went through is because they were able to block data going in and out of that center to make sure they couldn't manipulate machines back here in the U.S. Now, some of this remains to be seen, but yeah, it's one of the things that's been floated out there, and also could be part of why we grabbed Maduro and then recently went into Georgia to grab ballots there. And looks like we're headed into Arizona next, or at least we're setting the stage for that. And then maybe Pennsylvania. But I want to go back to something else that you kind of touched on, and that's is there a link between Brennan, Palantir, and what's going on there now?
That's a great question. The only thing that I've been able to find right now, what we do know is that Epstein donated, I think it's $30 million to an incubator at Harvard, which produced the DARPA program, later known as what we know as Facebook.
Operation LifeLog.
Nice. That's exactly right. And Peter Thiel is intertwined in that as well. Peter Thiel, of course, as we mentioned, it was a main backer and supporter of J.D. Vance. I believe J.D. Vance is compromised through Yale University. That's Skull and Bones. That's the association of the Bushes. Nothing new, because Elihu Yale, the namesake of Yale University, the founder of Yale University, was a major holder of the British East Indies Company. That's a Rothschild trading center. And if you go back to the flag that John Paul Jones flew on the Delaware on the USS Alfred, well, lo and behold, that flag, which was known as the U.S. Grand Union flag, well, that is the identical flag of the British East Indies Company, where you have 13 stripes, and then in the upper canton, you have the Union Jack. That was the first flag of the United States prior to what we know as the Star Spangled Banner. Betsy Ross, we have the stars in the upper canton and not the Union Jack. But that Union Jack represents the city of London. The city of London, as we stated earlier, is a sovereign nation, basically, in and of itself, which controls the monarchy. It is a Roman banking center that dates back prior to 1066, when William the Conqueror was unable to conquer Londinium, the Roman banking center, but he conquered the rest of the British Isles. That's why Windsor Castle was built. And interesting enough, Trump was just at Windsor with all of his people and his family, being serenaded by the crown, King Charles. Dude, that is not King Charles doing some type of a courtesy for Donald Trump. That is King Charles setting up Donald Trump to somehow cover or pigeonhole him. Believe me, I know this, and then I know it. I'm telling you my opinion. I lived in England. I have English. My mother is British. I know how these people think. They're incredibly intelligent. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of espionage. They have outwitted the United States and the American patriots, the American public, regardless of political aisle. They should be incredibly concerned, because if we've laid out right here that $38 trillion debt, we
Yep.
don't control our we essentially don't control our own politics. The only thing we can fall back on is our constitution, but that is crumbling, and so we've got to be concerned.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, they want nothing more than to erode our Constitution and the few restraints we actually have on what they're able to do right now. I know we're almost out of time here, but so I do want to get your thoughts on one other story, and then we'll go back and we'll go let people know where they can get your book. But this is the other hot thing on the internet this morning. So, distraction: Trump orders UFO file release after Obama's accidental admission shakes the internet. Now, I kind of keep going a few different ways on this. It seems like when I saw the interview, it seemed like Trump kind of took advantage of the opportunity after Obama misspoke during this interview a few days ago. But the other conspiracy on top of the conspiracy that's out there is, well, this is just to either distract from a war with Iran or some other big kind of bad news or whatever that's going to come out over the next few days. This is teeing up for the distraction. What do you think?
Yeah, quickly going back to your previous question, Kathy Ruemmler is the only link that I've been able to find between Brennan and Epstein, and she was given the CIA's highest award.
Of course, she was,
and she just resigned from Goldman Sachs. Now, the first person she contacted when she received that award in 2013. Jeffrey Epstein. So there definitely is a connection between John Brennan and Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know exactly what it is outside of Kathy Ruemmler, but in regards to the UFO angle, there's 195 countries on this planet. There's, how many of these countries have classified files of extraterrestrial existence? Now, from a very basic human being standpoint, do I believe there's life in this universe outside of ours? Absolutely. What shape and form that life is, I don't know. But I think most of Americans believe in God. Some of them don't, but certainly the human being hasn't created this universe. So there is certainly an extraterrestrial power to some degree or other. In regards to the
Sure.
United States and the classified files, I interviewed many years ago a Canadian official named Paul Hellyer, and Paul Hellyer swore. He said he knew firsthand that there was extraterrestrial influence on the American government. And this is the highest ranking Canadian politician outside of, I think it was Queen Elizabeth's husband, Prince, whatever his name was.
Sure.
So this is and he's passed away. Paul passed away a few years ago. But this is what Paul Hellyer said. I believe we're looking not necessarily into exposure. I don't think Trump's going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're controlled by," as David Icke would say, "the lizard people," or
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get anything like that. I think Trump, if he releases anything, it's going to be a tease. Because I believe Trump is compromised, I don't know who exactly is pulling his strings, and I don't know if he realizes it or not. It's my personal opinion. But I think Obama has inserted this because, again, Obama is a controlled asset. I'm going to go as far as say this, Mike. Obama is a controlled asset of British intelligence because I've told you that basically the British are controlling our economy. They control the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
They're controlling the IRS, and they're likely back through the Knights of Malta and the creation of CIA. They're controlling the CIA. So Obama's basically inserted this probably at an order to be a smokescreen from this arrest of Andrew. And likely the buildup of the arms what's going on in Iran. I think it's by and large it's theatrics. The same thing that we've been seeing with this Nancy Guthrie theater, and unfortunately, I think this woman has passed away. I feel it's horrible. And I apologize for any of her family members. I don't think she lasted a day after she was captured, but I think it's gone on 3+ weeks because it was theatrics to get away from what was going on in the investigation of the Epstein files. And we know that Savannah's husband has close ties to the Clintons and close ties to Epstein.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and again, that's not what you're going to hear. And I've kind of gone back and forth with the Guthrie thing. I think part of it's just she's a media insider. She's one of their own, and that's why there's this effort to continue to cover it. But yeah, it is just a distraction. But yeah, and as far as the UFO files, we may get something. They may confirm that they're surveying things. We're certainly not going to get the supposed footage of this 1957 touchdown at an air base somewhere, meeting with President Eisenhower and signing a treaty with the aliens that's supposed to exist, or any other nonsense or potentially real things that we've seen. We'll probably get some sort of confirmation of something. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything firm. We're not going to find out if we've got joint programs with them or anything. There'll be, oh yeah, we're surveilling them. There's something our pilots have seen. Maybe they have pieces of a downed craft, something like that. But it's not going to be the big enchilada we're all looking for.
Now, what I could say is this: if there is some type of extraterrestrial influence on global economics, it probably isn't directly involved in Area 51 or any of the Stanley Kubrick moon landing concept or that sort of thing. And I'm not saying anything about the moon landing. I'm just saying that the Stanley Kubrick is known to be involved in filming of those types of things. What I will say is something, if there is, it's likely happening through CERN, and whatever's happening through those nuclear reactors at CERN. That's where, if there's anything that would come to light, which you and I basically are in agreement. There's nothing that's Trump's not going to reveal some earth-shattering ET alien involvement. But if there is, then I would think that it's likely coming through what's happening at CERN. And one of the concept and the reason I would say that is there's a researcher in California. His name is just slipped my mind, but he's been talking about CERN now for over a decade, and Gilgamesh, some of these old ancient Babylonian type of influences that it looks like they're bringing into CERN. And I'll text you his name if it comes to me. But that's my only comment in regards to if there is some type of a extraterrestrial influence on the planet, it's likely coming through CERN.
Well, that's again, I guess what's that?
It's not gonna be revealed through U.S. classified documents.
No, I think we'll get some minimum. We'll probably get confirmation that they're studying things they don't understand. And yeah, I think a lot of these may be interdimensional anyway, the more information that's come out. But what is the best place for our audience to get your book, and when does the revised updated edition come out?
Yeah, Mike, thanks again for having me on. You can go right now to Amazon, type in High Stakes Treason. I think you'll have it within 3 days. Some people tell me they get it within a day. If you want an autographed copy, which some people do, you can Venmo me. I charge a little bit more for shipping and handling, $35. Venmo Ian Trottier, INTROTTIR. I'll get you out a signed copy ASAP. And then if you want to investigate a little bit more of the information that I have, people have liked the information up on the website. It's highstakestreason.com. Type in HTTPS because I've been unable to manage some of the SSL certificates on that website. So you may have to type in HTTPS. But if you type in High Stakes Treason on the web browser, the website will come up. There's another website for it called highstakestreasonbook.com. That gives a glimpse of, I think, the first 10 pages of the book. And you can read that and then buy the book there as well. You can follow me on X at Real Ian Trottier. Follow me on TikTok at Ian Trottier, Instagram Ian Trottier. Pretty vocal on X, at least I have been recently, because Svetlana, a woman out of Cambridge, a former historian student out of Cambridge, involved with General Flynn. It was a hoax. It was a smear from Stephen Halper. Her name is Svetlana Lakova, and she's been very outspoken against John Brennan in the past month and a half.
Awesome. Well, again, I want to thank you for joining us here today. We'll have to get you back here soon, get you on with like Colonel John Mills or somebody like that. You guys can trade your insights on Brennan. But thank you for joining today. To our audience, thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. I'll be back on Monday with even more. Thanks again, guys.